The soldering torch. Soldering is the process of using heat to join two pieces of metal with a solder. In this case, I'm going to join this piece of copper tubing that I've already used a tube cutter to cut off, and I'm going to join it to this copper T, both of which are 1/2 inch pieces. Several tools we're going to need today. We've got to clean this copper, several ways to do it. One is to use a pipe cleaner, which has sizes for 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch pipe, the external and the internal sizes. Another option is to use a piece of emery paper or plumber's sanding cloth. You wrap it around it and work it back and forth. Because you will not get a good weld if you do not clean this pipe very efficiently. You can't get it too clean. We're going to need a flux, some type of flux paste. You paint that on the two parts. It actually provides a clean area for the weld. And it comes with a little bitty brush. And you actually need some solder. This is a solid wire solder. It's a lead free. Some of the older solders actually had lead in them, and it would give off gases and vapors, and you know what happens when you inhale lead. This is the actual material that's going to make the weld of the bond. All the rest is just the prep. I've got my two pieces clean inside and out. I'm going to take some flux. I'm going to coat the inside, because you can see on this unclean side that they don't slide together too well. That's part of what the flux does too. You need to thoroughly coat both pieces with the flux. Work them together to where you want it to be. Then we're going to use the torch to start heating. The torch has an off switch and an on switch. You rotate the red lever to on, pull the trigger. Sometimes you may have to pop, it has an electrical igniter in there, sends the gas source. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start heating right here in this joint, and I'm going to get it hot. I'm going to take the blue tip of the flame right there, I'm going to put it right on my joint, and I'm going to work it around. And when I start seeing it change color, I'm actually going to take the tip of the solder, I'm just going to touch it to that area. See, it won't go anything. When it gets hot enough, that solder will melt on the spot. It will actually be drawn into that joint. Now you can see the flux is kind of boiling off and out. You need to do soldering in a well-ventilated area. You can see the impurities are burning off on it. Now I'm starting to get a change in color. And you saw when it got hot enough how quickly the tip of this solder would melt. It'll instantly melt and you'll lose a little bit on the ground. You have to be very careful. This stuff is very expensive. A little wheel like this is almost $10. Now you remember, anytime you weld something, it's the process of using heat. And heat means hot. Do not reach down here and grab this with your fingers. But if you can look and see, you can see how the solder, and I touched it on the top and it traveled all the way around the sides. It into that joint. And the way you test it is you let it cool and you run some water pressure through it. But that's the process of soldering. And if you need to undo it, all you have to do is reheat it till the solder that's in that joint becomes pliable, and you should be able to pull it apart. Now I took my joint apart so that you can see that there is that silver color soldered all the way through that joint. Be sure and turn your torch off and secure all your materials. This is how you use a soldering torch.